Okay, it's time for the long awaited for video in comparing some of the top Polkadot Crowdloan participants, and then at the end I'll give you my opinion on which one or ones I think is or are the most profitable in terms of less percentage of private investors and bigger allocations towards the Crowdloan. Now we'll kick it off with Acala. We know the total supply is 1 billion and it's also deflationary, partially, right, because it's also static. And mostly because the transaction fees will be getting burned. Now looking at the tokenomics pie chart, we need to sum up the early backers and backers, which will be almost 30% of the total amount. The community section is almost half, which is awesome, but out of that, 34% is allocated to the auction reserve and the ecosystem development, and half of that is for this current Crowdloan. The others half being for the next Crowdloan after 2 years. So 17% for this one, which means 170 million tokens, which is a very good number in my opinion. Now, unfortunately, unlike Karura, the canary network of Acala, what we don't know is the vesting schedule for any of the backers or early backers. So it's hard to know exactly what they might do, but let's assume they're following the same model as Karura. That would actually be 1 month lockup for the backers and 12 months for the early backers, with 18 months for the founding team, which would be awesome considering the distribution ratio. Also, one other thing to keep in mind is that unlike Karura, Acala will unlock 20% of the rewards that get distributed from the Crowdloan, and 80% are vested over almost 2 years, 22 months to be exact. Finally, about Acala, don't forget the massive cap at 50 million DOT, which guarantees you a smaller amount of ACA than you'll currently get should they hit that cap. Before we look at the next participant though, I'd like to take a moment to thank today's video sponsors Genshiro for sponsoring this video, who also happen to be participants on the Kusama Crowdloans. So let's watch this short clip and then I'll continue on. This video is sponsored by Equilibrium, a DeFi platform and the first decentralized interoperable money market used for yield borrowing and trading on margin. Equilibrium are powered by the EQ token, the cryptocurrency used for governance to vote on those proposals, also for product fees when DeFi products want to deploy on Equilibrium, also for bailout liquidity and for transaction fees. One special feature of Equilibrium is XDOT, which is used to bid for parachains while keeping the fluidity of your DOT. This should prove particularly useful when considering that one needs to wait for about 2 years before they can get access to their DOT after they contribute to a Polkadot Crowdloan. Equilibrium also have a canary network on Kusama called Genshiro, which are currently participating in the Kusama Crowdloans. Just like Equilibrium, Genshiro as a cross-chain protocol offers a lot of the functionalities that we've seen with Equilibrium. Also, between the 1st and 8th of November, Genshiro are offering 5,000 gens as extra bonus rewards for each KSM that is contributed to their Crowdloan. Check out the link in the description of this video. Next up, let's look at Moonbeam. We all know their canary network Moonriver had the best hype soon after listing, when people realized the potential, having no VCs nor private investors in it, and doing so well because of its special utility used for pairing on all those dexes that launched on Moonriver network. Now the same thing should happen to Moonbeam in terms of utility, but know that the allocations differ a lot, so don't expect miracle pumps. We have to be realistic about this. 1 billion is their total supply, with only 10% allocated to the Crowdloan. 30% gets unlocked at TGE with 70% vested, but don't forget the Take Flight event where 10% got sold at that event. With Moonbeam, as with the other parachain Crowdloans, a very large percentage is allocated to the team, key partners and advisors, early backers, strategic funding, etc. And what we don't know is when they get their unlocks and if all of those are locked for a certain number of months or not. But one thing is for certain, the 10% that got sold at the Take Flight event will all get their unlocked Glimmer tokens as soon as the token generation event happens and they list on exchanges. So do expect a bit of a price dump there in my opinion. Also, don't forget that they got a 5% annual inflation, which is uncapped, though that part should not make much of a difference. After all, Moonriver hasn't been affected by that and is now getting to 3 months since the release and is still doing quite okay. The issue I see with Moonbeam though, to be honest, and this is probably the biggest issue which kind of put me off and put other people off as well, is the huge DOT cap for their Crowdloan, which is 100 million DOT. I don't know if it's because they want a lot of people to hold Glimmer or if they just don't want too few people to hold large bags, but they're clearly the only ones with this humongous cap, and it scared many people from contributing large amounts of DOT. Next up, Astar Network have allocated 15% of their total supply to the Crowdloan, which is 1.4 billion Astar tokens as a base reward, and 5% is allocated for bonuses. The total supply of Astar is 7 billion with a 10% annual inflation. Now, they didn't actually have a pie chart, so I had to create this using the existing data from a table that they've provided. 10% are transferable at TGE and 90% are vested, so that's another criteria to keep in mind. But from what I read in the table, there are no unlocks at TGE from any of the early backers, which should help. They've also got a 35 million DOT cap, so much less than its main competitors, Acala and Moonbeam, as we can see in this image. Manta Network's Crowdloan strategy is to reserve 15.6% of the total supply for the Crowdloan, and any unused supply will be reserved for subsequent auctions. 156 million Manta tokens to be exact, as the total supply is 1 billion. Unlike its Canary counterpart, Calamari, which will have a 10 billion total supply, which is a bit odd because no other parachains have a larger supply Canary network. In fact, it's the opposite. Out of these 156 million, there will be 120 million for the auctions reserved, 30 million for the Manta Pay liquidity event, and 6 million for the Binance early bird rewards for those who contribute using Binance. As we can see in the pie chart, quite a large percentage goes to the early backers, the advisors, and the team. Apologies for not including percentages for some pieces of the pie, but for some reason the website where I created it just didn't allow me to add more, but the percentages you don't see are like 5% each. Now, I do have to say Manta Network have been very aggressive with this Crowdloan because they are vesting 100% of the tokens, and all will be linearly unlocked over the 96 weeks, which are approximately 22 months. So this is a bit disappointing from my point of view, considering how generous they've been with Calamari, unlocking 34% at TGE. But on the bright side, they do have a very nice reward scheme, and we'll take a look at that in a moment. As we can see here, they're maximizing the bonus rewards in Manta based on how many DOT get contributed to their Crowdloan, and this should help them with the contributions big time. So far, just under 100,000 DOT have been contributed to Manta, but there's no rush. There will be plenty of time to win. Litentry has shockingly allocated the largest percentage out of all the Crowdloans for the community, a whopping 45%. But wait, it's not all 40 parachain auctions, but it also includes the ecosystem, so that's the catch. Otherwise, as we can see, the remaining percentage are allocated to the team and early investors. In case you didn't already know, Lit has a total supply of 100 million and 20 million Lit. And in case you didn't already know, Lit has a total supply of 100 million. And 20 million Lit, which is 20% of the total supply, is the real amount that gets allocated to the Crowdloan, which looks pretty decent to me. Also, their hard cap is 8 million DOT, so they want people to hold more Lit. Lit is also trading at the moment at just over $5, so we do have something to go by if you want to evaluate it. But the absolute minimum guaranteed is 2.5 Lit for each 1 DOT if they were to hit their Crowdloan cap. Now, the Litentry team were also kind enough to compensate people who contributed DOT to their Crowdloan in batch 1 and if they don't win it. Now, the compensation ratio is 0.12 Lit for each 1 DOT contributed, and these compensations are paid when they'll finally win a parachain auction. So they basically stack up, but don't get too excited. Knowing the price of Lit at just over $5, we know that the compensation is worth about 60 cents for each 1 DOT contributed, so it's not a whole lot even if it's free. Last but not least, it's Parallel. I know we weren't huge fans of Parallel Heiko, the Kusama Canary network on this channel in the past because of their 2% allocation to the Crowdloans actually being the lowest, but it seems they've improved their strategy greatly. 15% para tokens are allocated to their Polkadot Crowdloan. 10 billion is their total supply. And then the only thing that we should worry about at TGE is the ecosystem fund, as 25% of that gets released into circulation. That's 25% of the 1.5 billion, so 375 million tokens will be released at TGE. Meanwhile, those of us who contribute to the Crowdloans do not get any unlocks, but everything's linearly vested. Okay, that's been a lot to cover, so I need to do some recap. Acala gives us 17% of the total supply with a 20% unlock at TGE, Moonbeam 10% of the total with 30% unlock, Astar 15% with a 10% unlock, Manta 15.6% of their total supply with no unlock, Litentry 20% of the total supply with no unlock, Parallel with 15% of the total supply with no unlock. So it's very clear from this list that Acala win it for the best crowdloan participant so far. This mixed with the marketing hype from Dan Reeser also explains why it's been doing so well despite a $50 million cap. Now the second spot for the most profitable crowdloan in my opinion is likely to go to Manta Network because of their multiplier bonus based on contributions. So even though we won't see many tokens available in our wallets at TGE, that multiplier bonus looks pretty tempting to me, so that might help it do well, right? Mixed with their dot cap of only 30 million as well. That gives them some edge over Astar, who I initially wanted to pick as my number 2. So to me, the third most profitable is Astar because of its utility to allow smart contracts to port from Ethereum, Cosmos and other chains over to Polkadot, plus the Binance backing and the 10% initial unlock does help. Also, kind reminder that some of these crowdloan links can be found in the description of this video if you wish to support this channel. Some such as Acala Network and also Parallel, and I will be posting one on Manta when they're going to enable crowdloan bonuses based on referral schemes, because that's something that's coming up as well. So please make sure to keep your eyes out on this channel before you contribute to Manta Network until they release those, because you can take advantage of an extra bonus. Okay, it's not public yet, but it's just something that they've been discussing, which are planning to release very soon. That's been it from today's in-depth video, which I hope you found helpful when trying to decide which crowdloans to contribute to. So take care. See you in the next video. Bye bye.